So with the sprocket alignment complete, I can move on to timing the engine. I'm going to start on the left side first. I have the engine at top dead center. I have both cams with the index dot, same as the Woodruff key direction, pointing up, which is a good place to start. I need to adjust the rocker here to give me a valve clearance of 0.1 millimeters. Once I have that set, I can start the process. Now this is an early engine, a high lift, high duration camshaft. So the process is a little bit different than the later engines, but hopefully we can get it sorted and get it within spec, which should be for my E-cam 3.15 millimeters I'm looking for the measurement while the engine is at top dead center. So for my 69 engine, and I'm running an E-cam, I'm looking for a valve intake overlap between 3 and 3.3 millimeters. That's the range given by Porsche. Anywhere in between those measurements is fine, with obviously an optimum of 3.15 millimeters for the cam timing. That's where I want this actual cam to land. So let's give it a go. We'll start with this left side first. So I bought a set of these RSR rocker shaft seals to help prevent some oil leaks in the cam housing. Just slide them onto the shaft. I found just going past the actual notch where they sit to be the best, and then just push them back towards it and they just pop right into place. So I'm going to go ahead and install the rockers on the intake for cylinders number 1 and 4. So I've just got my shaft here ready to go. I'm going to insert my rocker, and the camshaft is at top dead center, or with the keyway facing up, the dot facing up. So then I know it's not on cam, the rocker. So then I'm going to slide the shaft through the rocker. I just want to align it with the thinner side of the casting. The casting has a thick side and a thin side, and you want just the rocker to be weighted so that it's just level with the thin side of the casting. And I've got the nut facing to the back of the engine, so I can insert my tool all the way through here and get at the nut to torque it down. And once we've done that, we can set our valve clearance to be the 0.1 millimeters. I can go ahead and adjust this rocker onto the top of the valve to get my 0.1 millimeter valve clearance for the timing. And basically what I'm going to do is get my little feeler gauge. This has a 0.1 millimeter blade on it, and put it in between the swivel seat here and the top of the valve. And then I'm just going to turn the adjusting screw until I feel it grab onto that feeler gauge, which is here, and I can't move that feeler gauge, and I'm going to back it off a tiny turn until I can drag that feeler gauge underneath that little swivel foot and the top of the valve. And that's too tight, so I'm going to back off. So there is perfect. So I'm just going to turn the locking nut with my fingers just to get it almost there. And then with my 13mm wrench on the locking nut and my screwdriver holding that adjustment screw in place, I can tighten down the locking nut. It's pretty tight. And then I can just double check with my feeler gauge to see if that is the right amount of drag on there. And it is, it feels really good. So I'm going to go ahead and install a little dowel pin into one of these sprocket holes. So I'm going to take a little look. It's in this area somewhere. It's going to fit. And it'll line up with the little flange gear behind here, the flange sprocket. So nearly fits. Oh, there you go, it's this one. So let me just leave it in there. So I'm going to go ahead and just mark this and say that's the first one I've tried. And then I go ahead and install the washer, the big wave washer, the 46mm wave washer, and the nut. And we'll torque these bad boys down to 110 foot-pounds. Wow. So I went ahead and invested in a digital dial indicator to make my life a little bit easier. Instead of counting how many times the actual dial rotates, I can just see it printed in millimeters right on the dial. So I'll go ahead and install this on the intake valve for cylinder number 1. So I'm going to set my dial indicator up here so the actual point is sitting right on the seat of the valve. And then I've given myself a little bit of preload here down to 20 mils, I think it is there. So for bringing this nut up to its 110 foot-pound torque, I actually invested in the Stomsky Racing SR51 cam nut tool. This thing is great. It holds the cam and you can tighten the nut and it makes it a one-man job. I was having trouble testing with the actual crow's foot tool on the nut. It kept on slipping off and I actually destroyed one nut. I had to buy a new one. I don't think there's anything wrong with the tool. I think it's more my inexperience using it. And it's a bit of a two-person job and not a one-man job. And I don't have any help in the garage, so I invested in this tool, the SR51. I think this is going to help a lot for me tightening this to 110 foot-pounds while trying to keep the cam from turning. Okay. That is now set to 110 foot-pounds. So with my dial indicator at 0 and the crank at top dead center, I'm going to rotate it clockwise 360 degrees. And then we're going to come back round and we're going to look at that number on the dial indicator. It's starting to come on now as the valve gets depressed by the cam. And I want to come right back to top dead center and then read that number. I'm a little bit shy, tiny more bit shy. Come on, it's very close now. I think that looks pretty good, and I'm at 1.74 on the dial indicator. So I want to leave this at top dead center. I want to undo the nut and then move the cam until this reads 3.15 and then hopefully insert the pin and tighten the nut and the timing will be set. Unloosen this nut. There was a mark it before. Make sure I know it was here. Okay. P202 tool on the cam. And I want to rotate this until it says 3.15. So I want it right about here. That's where I want it. Okay, let's find a hole for that pin. It's this one down here. So with the pin in place down here, I'm going to just rock the cam and see where it ends up. We're at 348 there, and then the other way at 293. So we're in the zone. So I'm going to add the washer and the nut. Any movement, tightening this to 110 foot-pounds while trying to keep the cam from turning. Okay, well, it's moving around a lot. But I've ended up on 304. Okay, let's go for another ride around. Let's see, 720 degrees. See where we land. 360. It's starting to back around, it's starting to come onto cam. Alright. That's where I think it should be. Right there. That looks bang on top dead center to me. And I am at minus 3.15. Well, there you go. I think this one is timed correctly now. I'm happy with that. So I can move on to the right. So with the valve adjusted on number 4 intake and the cam in the down position, I can start timing the right side of the engine. Minus 3.38, which is out of range for the E-cam, so I'm gonna have to undo the nut, move the cam. I think it's very close. I don't think I need a new pinhole. I'll move the cam, tighten the nut, and try and get back to this 3.15. I'm holding at 314 right now. It's got oh, I want it. There you go. 315. 315. Come on. Oh, it's so hard to hold it. There we go. Okay. It's come out at 314, torque down, 210 foot-pounds. And has it moved from top dead center? No, it has not. Let's rotate the engine 720 degrees. I'm coming back up on 720 degrees. So I'm back at top dead center, and I got a reading of minus 3.16. So I'm really happy. This side is right on target too. So with the cam timing now set, I can measure for that all-important valve clearance. So I'm going to rotate the crank away from top dead center, but not far enough to put any load on the valve. So with my dial indicator still set up on number 4 intake valve, I can go ahead and turn the adjustment screw 1.5 turns to get the 1.5mm clearance I'm looking for. So I'm going to give it a little bit more. Let's give it 1.6, let's say. So I'll go ahead and I'll do the same on number 4 exhaust. That needs 2mm of clearance, so that'll be 2 full turns on that adjustment screw. And I'll do the same on the other side on number 1. Okay, with the valves depressed, 1.5mm on the intake and 2mm on the exhaust, I'm going to turn the engine 720 degrees and slowly, and see if I feel any binding at all. Not feeling anything. Pretty usual. Okay, let's go again. I feel pretty tight here, but that's normal. Okay. Well, I've been around a few times there and I didn't feel any interference at all between valves and pistons, so I'm pretty confident that the valve clearance on this guy is good. So, break the whole thing down, add the sealant, and then I can build it all up again.